On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury. In a matter of hours, nearly 900 precision strikes obliterated Iranian air defenses, crippled their blue water navy, and assassinated Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. It was a decapitation strike that instantly triggered a regional war, pulled in neighboring Iraq, and shut down 20% of the world's oil supply in the Strait of Hormuz. But a war of this scale doesn't happen overnight. It was the boiling over of a pressure cooker that had been heating up for over 3 years. To understand why 2026 broke the Middle East, we have to rewind the clock. The foundation for this war was laid during the broader Middle Eastern crisis that erupted in late 2023. For decades, Iran and Israel had fought a shadow war, cyber attacks, proxy militias, and covert assassinations. But in 2024, the shadow war stepped into the light. For the first time, Iran and Israel directly exchanged ballistic missile strikes against one another's sovereign territory. The psychological barrier had been broken. The unspoken rule that they would only fight through proxies was gone. This new violent paradigm escalated precisely a year later. In June 2025, Israel, joined by the United States, launched what became known as the 12-Day Wall, or Operation Midnight Hammer. This wasn't a full-scale invasion, but a highly targeted air campaign aimed directly at Iran's advancing nuclear program. US and Israeli jets struck critical nuclear facilities at Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan. It was the first time the US military had directly attacked Iran's nuclear infrastructure. The message was clear: the West would not tolerate a nuclear-armed Iran. But rather than capitulate, the Iranian regime dug in, accelerating both their rhetoric and their proxy network operations. The final catalyst didn't come from a foreign missile, but from within Iran itself. In January 2026, the Iranian people, exhausted by economic sanctions and authoritarian rule, launched the largest protests since the 1979 revolution. Millions demanded regime change. The Iranian government's response was historically brutal. Security forces massacred thousands of protesters. Human rights groups and US officials cited death tolls, ranging from 7,000 to over 30,000. Watching this unfold, the newly returned Trump administration in Washington drew a hard line. Warning that Iran would pay a very big price, the US initiated the largest military buildup in the Middle East since the 2003 invasion of Iraq, deploying over 50,000 troops, multiple aircraft carriers, and the 82nd Airborne to the region. As the Armada assembled, there was one final, fragile attempt at diplomacy. In mid-February, the US and Iran held indirect nuclear negotiations. But the US and Israel had lost all patience. Viewing the talks as a stalling tactic while Iran rebuilt its nuclear capacity, the Trump administration issued a strict ultimatum. When the deadline passed and Iran refused to renounce its nuclear ambitions, the US and Israel concluded that diplomacy was officially dead. Just days later, on February 28th, at 2 a.m. Eastern Time, President Trump announced the beginning of Operation Epic Fury on social media. Hours later, Supreme Leader Khamenei was dead, the Iranian Navy was systematically dismantled, and the skies over the Middle East were filled with interceptors and drones. The United States anticipated a swift victory, a decapitation strike that would cause the regime to collapse. Instead, it united the Iranian state, plunged neighboring Iraq into a proxy battleground as local militias retaliated against US bases and evolved into a grinding, devastating quagmire. The 2026 Iran war wasn't a sudden explosion. It was the predictable result of a 3-year escalation ladder. Broken taboos, limited strikes, domestic massacres, and failed diplomacy. And today, the region continues to burn.